everyone, Bob here. Recently I was asked to make a video showing my stats, my skills, and my gear. So today I thought I would take some time and make such a video. So, without further ado, let's begin. Let's start off with my stats. Currently I'm in my standard DPS gear. And with this gear, alright, let's put my stats. My stats are I have 5 strength, the lowest you can possibly have, 5 dexterity with an added on 240 for a total of 245 dexterity for my gear. My focus, my base is 1,135, but with gear, I'm able to raise it to 2,825. Then, for my vitality, I have 10 base, so you could say I'm in a full focus build, which I am, and then I have 430 added vitality, which brings me up to 3,480 health, and for energy, I have 14,861. Currently, I have 311 health sigils, and I have 2,631 energy sigils, although I'm always trying to find more. Then, for attack, I have 1,397 for my wand ability and that dexterity. I haven't really spent any time leveling my wand ability, other than the occasional hero wisdom licks at necromancer when I'm on spirits. For defense, I have 490 from that dexterity bonus. Then for armor, I have 187, although as we all know, mage armor is kind of a joke, and 187 armor isn't really going to get me anywhere. Carrying quite a lot of items because it's too laggy to open up the vendor shop due to all the items being clumped into the other, which totals to almost all of that. So yeah. Now, let's move on to some questions. I get asked a lot, why am I full focus? Isn't health helpful? And currently, as I'll show in a little bit, I'm able to hot swap my build to some other gear. So I'm able to raise my maximum health, need be, to around 6.1 thousand, with some chaos boost in there as well. And that also helps me with my E-shield. So I'm able to survive quite well. But being full focus does have its advantages as well. On Proteus, for example, I'm able to deal optimal damage, and as a result, I've been able to acquire around 20 Proteus kills to date. So, full focus is nice, and if you can survive, or at least be able to switch to gear that allows you to survive in those cases like Unox, where the AoEs is outrageous, or a Gelebron, where you're set to die either from loose adds every once in a while, Chaos Runes, or just plain old AoE, full focus can definitely be advantageous. Next, let's discuss my armor. So, my standard armor, I currently use a Royal Trombone Helm of Firestorm, which gives me 150 vitality, 8 Firestorm, and has 180 requirement, but its best stat overall is that it boosts my Firestorm skill by 650, which is extremely helpful. Next, I wear Dolch Gold Gown of Myth. I would like to thank my clan for giving this to me a ways back, and it is extremely helpful. A question I get a lot with this piece is why I use this piece over instead of the Occult Breastplate, especially since I do use Ice Shard. It took me a lot of tests, and even I had to test around in-game, not just using math, and I found that the Dolch Goal of Myth, between its 1,000 Fire Magic boost, its 1,000 Ice Magic boost, and its 480 Focus boost, leaves the Occult Gown way behind in the dust. Best of all, this also works with my EDLVP, makes hot swapping armor a lot easier, and so yeah, it's definitely a much better than the Occult Gown. More stats on this. It has 120 dexterity, 480 focus, 120 vitality, 1,000 ice magic, 1,000 fire magic, 40 armor, and some resists, even though resists don't mean too much considering how quickly we die. Next, moving on to the legs, I'm using the Occult Skirt because it adds 650 Firestorm. Some other mages will use EDL Legs or EDL Skirt, I think it's called. Yeah, Exalted Dragonlord Skirt. For the E-Shield bonus, I don't even use E-Shield with my main points. I only have spares in it, which I'll get to when I discuss my skills. But even so, because I like to maximize my DPS, I always wear the Occult Skirt for the 650 Firestorm bonus. Then for my shoes, I'm using the Occult shoes, probably the best shoes that are out there. EDL shoes only add energy boost. These add 500 in firebolt damage, and that's actually just shy under my godly firebolt ring. So it's quite a big firebolt boost. I then use Ancient Beastbone gloves. And I get quite a lot of questions as to why I use the Ancient Beastbone gloves. A lot of people will say use the Occult gloves, it adds 900 damage, it's a lot more, especially since I use Ice Shard. but there's a few things I took into account when I decided which of these to use. First, the extra bonuses. For example, it's 23 armor to 31. That's only 9 difference, not that much. In terms of resist, it's only 11 more, not that much. Health is doubled, but energy is only 11 more. So there really isn't any extra bonus as to why I should, oh my gosh, I need to choose the occult gloves. So it really just comes down to the damage bonus. The occult gloves add 900 ice shard damage, which is quite nice. But I don't use Iceler, so I'd be relying upon another mage for using Iceler. And on top of that, I do use Fireler. So the 300 damage is less likely to have to deal with the boss resist. And then furthermore, I use Firebolt more so than I rely on Ice Shard because it does deal more damage, it's instacast, and I'm a Fire Mage. So because I'm a Fire Mage, I use Fireler, and Firebolt is instacast, so I'm more likely to use it in a lock battle. I'm going to want that skill to hit more. Also, for it comes the fact that due to the fact that I have a Firebolt cooldown, when I get to my jewelry, you'll see, the Firebolt gloves actually add about the exact same damage in terms of DPS, not including the lack of a Iceler. So when you combine all that in, I went with the Ancient Beastbone gloves. So, one last question that some people have is why not use EDL in the Mordhelm? And as I've shown you, all of these pieces of gear add so much damage to Firebolt or Firestorm that really the small amount of focus that comes, for example, from a Mystery Helm and the small amount of fire magic and ice magic that you get from Exalted Dragonlord is just completely underwhelmed. Some people need the skill points, which I completely understand. If you need the skill points, go for it. You should always max the skill first. But for someone like me that's able to get that from either hot swapping or other gear, I feel that using this best helps the DPS. And from my research, my math, and just testing it around in live game killing bosses, this is shown to be true. So, next, let's discuss the armor hot swap. So, for Gelleron, and as I said earlier, sometimes at Unox, and even sometimes at Phantom, when we don't have the best ad control and my camo charm can't save me due to AoE pulling in ads, I will switch to my EDL armor. I have this set up on a hot swap page right here, in which case I can swap easily. So let's go over this. So, I swap out my Godly Abyssal Armlet of Firebolt for a Majestic Aerific Band of the Meteor. I do this for 2 reasons. Well, 1 reason really. Well, actually 2. First, when I hot swap to my Mordhelm, I lose 8 Firestorm damage. So I need to find, Firestorm skill points. So I need to find some way to make that up. The Meteor Brace adds in 7 Firestorm. So as a result, I'm able to get my Firestorm to 49, which is not that big of a loss. It's only 1. And I also gain, for the second part, I gain 155 Vitality, which is quite nice. So it makes up for that. But when I hot swap, you would say I then lose my Firebolt skill. But when I swap the EDL, remember the EDL gloves give 8 Firebolts. So I'm losing 2, but once again, 48 Firebolts versus being locked all the time, it works out. And also this way I can still save my skill points. And it just helps overall. So it's nice to have some extra gear that I can use to hot swap should I need extra health. When I hot swap to this, I'm able to get up to 6.1 thousand health. Here, I'll show you. Also because of this kite. And when this, I get 6,168 health. I'm then also have 2,975 focus, 435 vitality, and my energy skyrockets up to 18,221. This does give me less DPS, but I'm able to survive a lot more, so I'm actually able to do DPS. And also, this way I don't have to worry about re-ulting for Gelleron or anything. All my skills stay close to maxed, if not maxed, and as a result, it's just a much easier, smoother transition. So now, let's move on to my weapons. Currently, I am using the Dark Wand of Solar Bolt and an Exalted Dragonlord Grimoire. These currently our highest active wand is the Dark Wand of Solar Bolt. We did have a Shadow, but currently the mage that won it is out of the game due to real life circumstances. The Dark Wand of Solar Bolt provides me with 675 damage to Firebolt and a skill that grants up to 5,000 magic damage. The wand itself, well, it gives 180 focus and 600 energy. The other stats don't really matter because, unlike what OTM thinks, mages don't auto, nor should they. On that matter, I have done some analysis as to how we can best get divine damage into our autos. I tried using autoing at Proteus and some other bosses, and it just doesn't work out that well. Due to our heavy skill spam, maybe we get in 1-2 autos, but then when you take into fact how low attack we have, how high the defense on these mobs are, it doesn't do anything, and it just pulls us closer to the AoE. We're more likely to get killed, and sometimes it can even cause lag with hot swapping, so it's just not worth it, not even worth considering. Then for my offhand, I use the Exalted Dragonlord Grimoire, which provides me with 200 divide damage, which once again is useless except for when I do Spirits at Necromancer, 450 focus, and 300 chaos resistance, which, considering that I have no other chaos resistance, is extremely handy. So yeah, those are my weapons currently. Along the line of weapons, I do get a lot of questions as to why I use a Gelly Wand over, let's say, a Hrung Skull. I believe my Hrung Firebolt Skull is actually my warrior because I lent it out to a fellow mage, but for demonstration purpose, I'll pull up my Void Skull of Firestorm, which I need to return to the bank because I don't use that often. So the issue is people say that as a result of not having Firebolt cooldown, or the only one being available from a Royal Emberdrake Charm of Firebolt, because the other tiers are extremely rare, even the Royal one itself is extremely rare, people say that we should use a Hrung Skull instead. Also, the Hrung Skull provides a decent amount of skill points, and all in all, it's pretty useful. And while I do admit that a cooldown is insanely important, I have found that even for a Shadow or even for a Void, the percent cooldown compared to my Firebolt Emberdrake Charm is so low that I would use the Firebolt Emberdrake Charm. And as a result, the wand wins out. But let's say I did not have this charm. Let's say I had instead a Hellfire Runestone, which I would pull up, but it's currently being lent out to another clanny at the moment, as I only use it for skill hits every once in a while. But with that charm that provides, I believe it is 650 Firestorm damage, let's say I was using that instead of this. Under those circumstances, I would say that unless you had a Shadow Gelebron wand, the skull would win out. But the wands provide a large-scale amount of focus, which goes to all your skills, from E-Shield to Attune to Firebolt, Firestorm, Ice Shard, and even Lure. So it is extremely useful there. But second, the amount of damage it provides is about close to what the cooldown percentage would be. And also, just I find that sometimes brute damage itself can be helpful, especially if you're in a competitive clan where mages need to be able to get in those high density skills, and because of how fast bosses lock, typically locking in the first 20 or 10%, it's the first hit, maybe even the second hit that matters the most, and at that point cooldown would only get you maybe in a third hit, but even that is a bit sketchy, but you're guaranteed 2 hits no matter what, and under that, it's sometimes better to have the stronger hits. But this all honestly comes down to what other gear you have. If, let's say, you have a bunch of godly Aerific rings of Firebolts, then you're probably going to want to go with the Hrung Skull, because it's basically giving you a percentage back of your total DPS. So honestly, I would say it comes down to what is your other gear. If you have a lot of Firebolt damage, then you're going to want a Firebolt cooldown Skull. For further information along these lines, see my Fire Mage guide on the forums. I'll link that into the description of this video. Alright, now let's move on to my jewelry. I'll move on to rings after this. So for my Amy, I'm using a godly Hellfire Riviere. Just below this, I would say it was an Imperial, and then maybe a Skane Amy, and then just below that, the Royal. This provides 250 focus, 150 vitality, and 800 fire magic. Almost a full amount of a Skane set all in one Amy. But then if you add this 300 fire magic from this charm, that immediately is higher than the whole Skane set, which is quite nice. This provides me a 15% cooldown for my Firebolt skill, which is really nice. These are really rare charms, and I'm glad I was able to get one. It also provides me 300 fire magic and 30 focus, which is quite nice. For my normal bracelet, I used the Godly Abyssal Armlet of Firebolt, which gives me 510 Firebolt damage, 10 Firebolt skill, and 500 fire magic. For my upper bracelet, I use an Imperial Necral Band of Firestorm, which gives me a 25% cooldown reduction for Firestorm, 400 health, and 400 energy. It's nice to have both of these cooldown items. It works really well in making sure my 2 skills are bestly cooldown, and it really helps the DPS. Now let's move on to rings. I hot swap a lot of my rings, so first I'm going to go over my non-hot swap rings. My non-hot swap rings are Godly Aerific Ring of Firebolt, 15 Firebolt skill points, and 675 Firebolt damage added on, which is 25 more of a... No, I'm sorry, it's the exact same as my wand. So in one ring, I'm getting the same boost as a main hand wand, which is honestly incredible. It's a lot of damage packed into one small ring. My other galley ring that I don't hot swap is my Majestic Aerific Ring of Firestorm, which does 709 Firestorm damage and adds 12 Firestorm skill points. I then use an Imperial Necrol Band of Burial, which does 90 Dexterity, 90 Focus, 900 Fire Magic. For a full list of ranking of rings, see my Fire Mage guide in the end game category. Once again, I'll have that guide linked into the description. Now, let's go over what rings I hot swap. I hot swap one ring for each skill. On my first, so with this, I'll first start out by going over how my hot swap pages are organized for my rings and my skills. On the first page, I have my main burst DPS skills. I keep these here just because these are the skills I'm using the most, and this way I can just cycle through quickly by tapping on each ring. The ring for each skill is right across from it, that way I know which one is which, so I go ring skill, ring skill, ring skill. Also on this page I have my Dragon Lord Grimoire, just because that is one of my main skills, and it honestly does a lot of damage, especially at Proteus and Galbron, compared to my other skills, so I want to make sure I use it as soon as it's cooled down. On my second page, I then have other skills that I don't need to see them cool down to know that they're cooled down. For example, Attunement shows on my hotbar, so I'm able to see exactly when I need to recast it. Lure shows on a mob or boss, so I know when I need to cast it. Same thing for Incinerate. I know when I'm low in health, so I know when to use my bunny. That's why sometimes in my videos you'll see me flicking back and forth to see if it's ready. And then also, you may be wondering why this isn't on the first page, I have my wand. I found out that for some odd reason, I kept tapping on the wand over other skills, even though its DPS is far inferior to either the lack of the magic lure, or just because it does 5,000 damage, considering with this skill, like Firebolt, which does close to 11,000 max damage. So due to that large discrepancy, I found that it was best if I moved it over here, and that when all of my other skills were on cooldown, then I would use that skill. On the next page, I then have skills I either rarely use, like E-Shield, which has only my spares in it, and then I also have Freeze, which I only use like Gellerpron. Although, also for Freeze, I have it here as well. This is my main page I use for Gellerpron, as you'll see in some of the videos, as it also has my rune and my bunny skill right there. This Freeze is mostly just for even when I'm doing bounties or something else, PvP included. Just to give me a little bit of extra time either to cast E-Shield again, to get in a bunny heal, or just to stave off while my skills cool down. So this is how I have my hotbar set up. So now, let's go over the specific rings that I use. So first, I use a Mighty Aerific Ring of Firebolt when I hot swap for Firebolt. This gives me 405 Firebolt skill damage and 11 to skill points. Mighty Aerific Ring of Firestorm for Firestorm, 608 Firestorm damage and 11 skill points. I use a Mighty Aerific Ring of Ice Shard for when I swap the Ice Shard. This gives me 810 Ice Shard damage, which is quite a lot, and 11 points to Ice Shard. I use an Imperial Alchemic Ring of Fire Attunement when I hot swap to Fire Attune. That gives me 9 Fire Attunement boost. I then use an Imperial Orphic Ring of Lure of Fire, which gives me 150 focus, 9 Lure of Fire points, 275 heat resistance. Now with this ring, a lot of people say, why don't you just use this in your standard over, let's say, the Majestic Aerific Ring of Firestorm. And if you see the guide that I posted on the forums, you'll see that actually, even though it gives 150 focus, the DPS it adds is not that good. And as a result, it's better just for hot swapping than it is as a standalone ring to leave in your non-hot swap category. But if you're not going to hot swap, this is a decent ring to keep on there. Then I use a Godly Abyssal Ring of Burning for the Incinerate only. I did previously use an Imperial Ring of the Inferno, but this gives one more Incinerate point. Then, next page, I then use an Imperial Frost Iron Ring of the Glacier, which gives 9 Energy Shield, 400 Ice Magic, 45 Resist for Elements damage, which is kind of nice, although I only hot swap it. Then I use a Godly Abyssal Ring of Glacial Storms for Freeze, which gives 10 Freeze. It also gives 10 Ice Shard, but I have a better Gelly Ring that I use instead for Ice Shard when I hot swap to Ice Shard. Also, when I freeze, I use a Shadow Skull of Freeze. It reduces the cooldown time by 25%, which means that it's 25% faster, but I can recast, and really does help me stay alive. I can do any bounty for the most part, except for the Shadow Hounds. I can't do the Shadow Hounds because the DOT doesn't care if the mob is frozen, it still hurts. That DOT really is bad. This gives 12 points for freeze as well and 750 energy. So that is all the rings on Hot Swap. Next, I'm going to go over what skills I use, which I kind of addressed here. I use Firebolt, Firestorm, Ice Shard. I use Ice Shard, which for some people they don't understand, but I use Ice Shard because it provides an increased amount of flexibility I can do on wet mobs. For example, on the 205 and 210 EDL, as we call Flappy and Phantom, I'm able to do some decent damage, and even sometimes I'm able to out DPS other rogues or rangers, or best rogues and rangers, or those of DG still completely out DPS me. But I'm able to keep up, and which, as a fire mage, I find that it's needed, especially if we're in a lock battle, although we usually aren't against another clan there, which has a bunch of ice mages, then I'm able to still do some part. Also, for example, let's say the 210 Smolak, Skane when it has the fire screens, the fire absorbs, or even Pyrus, I'm able to do some extra damage. So, it just provides you that greater flexibility for mobs that are extremely resistant to fire. I then also use Fire Tune, as any good Fire Mage would. I use Fire Alert, and then I use Incinerate. Incinerate I really only use as a 4th DPS skill. Recently, some other mages in my clan have been using it, so its effectiveness for me has gone down a little bit, but I still find it useful. I only cast it when my other skills are in cooldown mode, kind of like my wand. I then also have my wand on here and my bunny. I then use E-Shield, but I don't have E-Shield max. I only have it at 28, although I'm able to max it, provide 8 more points to get to 36 when I wear EDL legs, so it still is decent. It does close to 2,000 damage currently, even if I switch EDL legs, just because I know I'm going to get this wrong otherwise. It protects me from 2440 damage, which is quite nice, and it does its job. I then also use Freeze, as I said earlier, for bounties in Gelebron. This way, instead of having to re-ult every Gelebron, I'm able to just stay in one build. I also, my hotbar, have Lure Monkey set up currently for whenever I need a Lure Monkey at Proteus. So, those are all the skills and gear. But I forgot one thing. Well, I didn't forget, but I saved the best for last, which is my pets and my mount. I use a giant golden hare of level 6. Which provides me with 180 focus, 180 resist magic, and 300 spell attack. I then also use a hardened silver wolf. It's only level 3. I'm leveling it up over time with bounties. This way, in case anything better comes along, I can just switch without really having cost me any gold. I die a lot also, so it really is just not worth the investment for me at the time. It gives me 30 dex, 30 focus, and some, yeah. It's alright. It helps, it looks cool, but for right now it doesn't have that much use for me because I do die a decent amount. Even though I do sometimes swap to a golden camo for traveling, I die too much at bosses too early on where it's a problem for me. And it's yeah. But currently there's some debate over which pet to use. I've seen on the forums other people talking about, is it even worth getting a war mount? Personally, I don't think it's worth getting a war mount at the moment unless you don't die at all. Then yeah, go for it. That pierce damage, it's instacast, it's nice, it's a good bonus. But yeah, currently my Wolf of Ghost and my favorite bunny of Harry Potter. And what good would a video of my build, skill stats, and gear be without some bragging rights? So with this, I've been able to get a 29,700 Firestorm, the highest current Fire Mage hit on a run, and I've also been able to get 20 Proteus Mage kills. The most amount of Mage kills on Proteus so far in the game. I've gotten 15 base kills and 5 prime kills. Thank you all for watching. If you have any other content that you want to see, anything else that you're curious about, please feel free to comment. Send me a PM on the forums, send me a PM in game, mail me, or even PM me over band, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.